It's been a while since green has been at the forefront of the metagame, once the most feared color in the game, as forever marked by its distinction of being the first inductee into the limited and banned list. Green has turned into a deck largely played by enthusiasts only. BT6 and EX1 offered very little support outside of the much maligned and memed on Eosmon. And while Ancient Troy and Arbormon gave the deck some useful tools, and maybe Green OTK could still sputter out a win every now and then, the deck still largely focused itself relying on big Digiburst-centric plays with Lilamon, Refleximon, and of course the king of green himself, Nidhoggmon. This left the color feeling slow and especially prone to bricking, and thus many wrote off green until a future day. And of course, that day is today. The day has finally come. Green is back in the meta with the introduction of further hybrid support in BT7. Green is definitely back on the menu as not only a meta contender, but as a versatile and inarguably tier 1 deck. If you've never played the color before and are interested in how it works, or maybe you're an OG green guy looking to get back into the deck, I'll go over the new hybrid strategy, its core gameplay loop, and a couple different ways to construct the deck. First, let's start by talking about the new Beetle engine. Introduced in BT7 were 6 new cards, which comprise the new core gameplay mechanic of the deck. Long gone are the days of Digiburst, and we now enter the hybrid meta. Alright, so first we're going to start off with JP is a 3-cost tamer, which allows you to reduce the cost of the card that digivolves over it by 1. This is notable as it allows your 2 cost to digivolve level 4 green hybrid Digimon to come out for only 1 memory, which is a huge boost to the speed of this deck. JP will also grant piercing as its inheritable effect, a hallmark keyword of green, and definitely a powerful part of this deck's playstyle. Beetlemon is a level 4 Digimon which can digivolve over a level 3 Digimon for 2 memory, or a tamer for 2 memory as well. When digivolved, you can search the top 5 cards of your deck and add 1 JP and 1 hybrid Digimon among them. This is a major consistency booster to a color that has had historically poor card draw and search power. The next level 4 in this engine is Metal Kabuterimon, which has 3 different Digivolution costs. You can go over a level 3 for 3 memory, over a tamer for 2 memory, or over another level 4 for 1 memory. When digivolving over a JP or another hybrid Digimon, he allows you to suspend an opponent's Digimon with 6,000 DP or less. This essentially reads as a 1-cost suspend effect, which is actually relatively undercosted, and not only allows Metal Kabuterimon to donk most other champions and rookies, but also combos very well with the rest of your core gameplay loop, which we will go over very shortly. The level 5 card in this deck is Rhino Kabuterimon. It's a level 5, of course, that digivolves over a level 4 Digimon for 3 memory. However, if you have a tamer in your sources, and this being a hybrid focused deck, then you are most likely going to have a tamer in your sources. You can reduce the cost by 2, making this an effective 1 cost to digivolve. When attacking, Rhino Kabuterimon's effect allows you to digivolve into a level 6-10 Warriors or Insectoid card in your hand for a memory cost of 3. This is notable as both your level 6s are 10 Warriors, Ancient Beetlemon and Ancient Troymon, and the effect helps to mitigate the usual 5 memory Digivolution costs of those cards. The main boss of this deck is Ancient Beetlemon. Its effect allows you to trash the top card of the opponent's security whenever a 10 Warriors or Hybrid type Digimon destroys one of your opponent's Digimon by battle. Note, it doesn't have to be this card itself that destroys the card in battle. It can be any other Hybrid or 10 Warriors card on your board that destroys a card in battle, and that will trigger the Ancient Beetlemon's effect. And if you have multiple Ancient Beetlemons out on the board, their effects will trigger at the same time, allowing you to trash multiple cards from your opponent's security when you destroy one of their Digimon in battle. The second effect, of course, is the Ancient effect that all the Ancient Digimon have, which is you can play a level 4 green hybrid Digimon from your hand on deletion. But mainly, of course, we're playing it for the first effect, the deletion or trash security effect, in combination with the suspension effects at your disposal and JP's piercing inheritable. Ancient Beetle is oftentimes a removal, a security trash, and a security trek all in one, which makes it a very, very powerful tempo swinging card. And lastly, although this isn't a green specific card, I do have to give a special mention to Bokomon, who is arguably at his most efficient inside of green hybrid. His on-play effect to search top 5 for a tamer and a hybrid or 10 warrior greatly increases the consistency of this deck. And when you consider Beetlemon's very similar effect, the amount of search is actually quite high. What makes Boko a standout in green, however, is his second effect to gain 2 memory when a tamer digivolves. In all other decks, this results in a net 0 digivolution cost, as most level 4 hybrids have a 2 memory cost. But if you remember JP's effect to reduce cost by 1 when you digivolve, Bokomon allows you to net 1 gain memory whenever you digivolve with him out on the board over one of your tamers. And we consider that Metal Kabuterimon and Rhino Kabuterimon can also come out from 1 memory. You can see how Bokomon really lets you extend your plays and apply more pressure to your opponent. It's a huge boost to the deck speed, and I think for this reason, Bokomon is a must-play 4 of in any green hybrid deck. So at 24 cards total, this Beetle engine allows for a fast, high-tempo style of play, which can simultaneously build its own board, hack away at the opponents, and get in large bursts of damage all at once. So just to put it together for y'all, I'm going to go over the core gameplay loop of the deck and what some of the most common and powerful plays will be. Alright, so I'm going to start off by showing you guys sort of the base play of the deck. This is kind of what all the other plays build off of, and once you understand that this play is possible, then you're going to be able to see what else the deck is capable of very easily. So in this situation, we're going to start with 2 memory on our turn and JP on our board. We are going to digivolve JP into any level 4 hybrid, but in this instance, we'll go for the Beetlemon. Beetlemon normally costs 2 to digivolve, but because of JP, reduces the cost by 1. Then, because we did digivolve into Beetlemon, we'll look at the top 5 cards of our deck, and in this instance, we'll add another Beetlemon to our hand, and we don't have a JP, so the rest go to the bottom. Beetlemon can then digivolve into Rhino Kabuterimon for 1 memory. Draw a card, again, because Rhino Kabuterimon reduces its cost by 2 when you have a tamer in your sources. And then you can have Rhino Kabuterimon swing at the opponent, activate its effect, and digivolve into an Ancient Beetlemon, passing over 3 memory to your opponent. The attack ends up still going through, so if you attack over an opponent's Digimon in this scenario, then you'll be able to trash a top card of their security and perform a piercing check because of JP's inheritable. Or if they don't have any Digimon on their board that are suspended, you can just go ahead and attack their security, and that's still 13,000 DP to their security, which is pretty strong. So this is the base play of the deck, which allows you to climb from a tamer all the way into a level 6 with only 2 memory. The most potent version of this play results when you start off with JP into Metal Kabuterimon. So again, we're at 2 memory, we have JP. We can digivolve into Metal Kabuterimon. Metal Kabuterimon costs 2. When digivolving over a tamer, JP reduces the cost by 1, so we go to 1. And then Metal Kabuterimon's effect activates since he digivolved over a JP, and he can suspend a Digimon that is 6,000 DP or less on your opponent's side of the board. We'll use this Goblimon as an example. It'll get suspended by Metal Kabuterimon's effect. Metal Kabuterimon can digivolve into Rhino for 1 memory, and then the Rhino can swing over the Goblimon, activate its effect, digivolve into Ancient Beetle for 3, and that'll delete the Digimon that they had unsuspended on their board because Metal Kabuterimon goes ahead and suspends it, and then you'll be able to trash the top card of their security and do a piercing check. So as you can see, this is a very, very strong high tempo play, but even with just 1 more memory, you can really expand what you're capable of doing with this deck, and I'll go into that right now. Alright, so now we're going to go over what I like to call the full combo, or the most powerful thing that this deck is going to be doing most frequently. In this scenario, we're going to start off with 3 memories, so you can either do that by having your opponent just pass you 3 naturally, or you can have your set to 3 tamer. In this case, you can have either Mimi Tachikawa or Ken Ichijoji out on your board. I have both of them out in this example, so that way I can show you what each tamer is capable of in different scenarios. Or you could have a Bokomon out on your field and only 2 memory, and then when you digivolve over JP, you'll gain that 1 memory and you'll go to 3 memory. So it works out either way, but in this scenario, we'll show off the tamer version of this play. Alright, so we start off by digivolving JP into any level 4. Again, we'll start off with the Beetlemon. So you draw your card, costs 1 memory, and then you look at the top 5 cards of your deck. In this case, we hit a Rhino Kabuterimon. Again, Beetlemon can only add JP as its tamer, so the rest go to the bottom. Beetlemon can then digivolve into Rhino Kabuterimon for a cost of 1. All right, and then this 1 memory is going to be the key to what enables this play. Because JP reduces the cost of your first Digivolution by 1, most other hybrid decks would be at 0 memory in this scenario, but green is at 1 memory, and what that allows you to do is cast either a Thunder Laser or Atomic Inferno if you're playing red base like I am in this scenario. These are both very powerful options. Thunder Laser will allow you to spend any card on your opponent's side of the board. So let's say, for example, there's a Titamon on the opponent's side of the board. You can cast Thunder Laser right here, go to 0, suspend the Titamon, go into Ancient Beetle by swinging into it. Rhino Kabuterimon's effect activates. Digivolve into Ancient Beetle. Ancient Beetle has enough DP to clear the Titamon, which will then result in removing their level 6 boss, trashing the top card of their security, and doing a piercing check. And also in this scenario, we can go ahead and tap the Ken, which is whenever your green Digimon destroys an opponent's Digimon by battle, you can tap it to gain a memory, and then we only pass 2 memory over to our opponent instead of 3, effectively choking them by 1 memory. Very, very, very strong play, as you can see. Let's rewind it a bit. We'll go back to Rhino Kabuterimon with only 1 memory left. Again, the opponent has, let's say, a Titamon, and maybe in this scenario, they'll have a Goblimon on their board as well that's already been suspended. You can activate the Atomic Inferno in this situation. Go to 0 memory. Rhino Kabuterimon gains the plus 3000 DP and security attack plus 1 because it is a hybrid type Digimon. You can go ahead and swing into the Goblimon, activate Rhino Kabuterimon's effect, and digivolve into the Ancient Beetle once again. That'll delete the Goblimon, trash the top card of your security, and you'll do 2 piercing checks at 16,000 DP. Super, super strong. That's one of the main reasons why Atomic Inferno is so powerful in the green deck, because you can use it very quickly and efficiently thanks to the abilities of JP and Rhino Kabuterimon. All right, and then I want to show off just quickly what you can do with Mimi as well. So again, let's start off with our 1 memory, and we had our Rhino Kabuterimon out. Right here, we can tap your Mimi, bring out your red egg, and then you'll have an extra attack to go with as well. In addition to, let's say, your Atomic Inferno, that's suddenly 2 extra checks that your opponent was not accounting for thanks to the Mimi. Or you can also tap the Ken in this scenario as well and only pass over 2 memory instead of 3. These are very, very powerful effects, very fast, and it allow you to really control your opponent's board while simultaneously chipping away at their security with very strong effects, and also establishing your board with strong level 6s like Ancient Beetlemon, and also, of course, the Ancient Troymon, which will be able to stifle any sort of aggression they try to go for on their turn. All right, so let's go ahead and get into the 2 different types of builds that I said were going to be the most common ways to take the deck in this format. We're going to start off with going through Atomic Green Hybrid, as I like to call it, the red-green hybrid deck. For our eggs, we focus on ones that give us plus DP to our rookies, since they're going to be swinging in pretty frequently for chip damage. So in this case, we do 4 Capririmons and 1 Darimeramon. Capririmon is stronger than Darimera because it gives plus 1000 if you have a tamer in play. So that allows your rookies to be able to swing over opponents' Digimon that are smaller than them, which does come up. So that's why we focus on that one over the Darimera. For our level 3s, there's really only 3 different options that are actually worthwhile in this deck. The first one is Gaussmon, which will give you a huge edge in the mirror as well as against other hybrid type decks with its opponent can't reduce Digivolution costs effect, and also the other effect it has where it gains plus 2000 DP if you have other Gaussmons on the board is actually relevant in this deck because there are scenarios where you can have a Gaussmon on your board, and then if you have Mimi live, you can digivolve into another Gaussmon in your raising area and then use Mimi to bring it out, and then suddenly you have 2 5000 to 6000 DP BT6 depending on if they have the Digitama underneath out of nowhere that your opponent has to deal with, and if you hit an Atomic Inferno insecurity, then it's just gravy from there. So Gaussmon, definitely a very viable card in this deck, and I would say probably the best level 3 that you are going to be running. Next, we're going to go over Guillemon, which is just basically draw 2 cards, right? Because you draw one for hatching, and then you draw one when you attack. If it lives the first attack, then it's just gravy after that. Your opponent has to deal with it, otherwise it gives you too much pluses. Guillemon, definitely a very strong card to consider. There are people saying you can run the deck without Guillemon, since it is, technically speaking, the most expensive card in the deck. But in reality, it only costs, I think, about like $7 or $8, and it is worth the investment. I feel like just that draw 2 really increases your consistency and speed. I do recommend playing Guillemon in the deck very much so. And the last spot, of course, goes to Flamon, either BT4 or BT7. They both essentially do the same thing, letting you check X top cards and add a hybrid Digimon to your hand. BT4 Flamon does have the boon of having 1000 more DP, again allowing it to potentially swing over some stuff that the BT7 Flamon maybe could not, but the BT7 Flamon does allow you to search one more card off the top, so it's really up to preference. Either one is fine. I'm just showcasing this one because that's what most people seem to think is the better one, and it doesn't really matter either way. Then of course we have our 4 Bokos. That's standard, and then we have 2 Arbormons just to increase your consistency of having another level 4 hybrid to digivolve over your tamers to get your play started. 4 Beetles, 4 Metal Cubs, 4 Rhinos. We went over why that's super important to this deck. The Evolution Ancient as a 1-of tech I think is actually pretty key. This is essentially your 5th level 5 in this deck that can't be stocked by Cutemon, Gaussmon, Siakomon. It allows you to warp from level 4 to level 6 for 5 memory, because that's the memory cost of Ancient Beetle and Ancient Troymon. So let's say you start at 3 memory, you digivolve into Beetlemon for 1 over a JP, and then you can Evolution Ancient and digivolve straight into Ancient Beetle or Ancient Troy for 5, only passing 3 memory to your opponent, which is the standard amount of memory you want to be passing over. That's the most amount of memory you really want to be passing over, so this card actually is quite good. Comes up pretty unexpectedly and is your 5th level 5 that you want to be running, outside of Blossomon or Argomon, where the Digisorption can be stocked by Cutemon and Gaussmon, etc. So that kind of gives your opponent more outs, and you don't want to do that, and this card is perfect for avoiding that scenario. 4 Beetle, 3 Troymon, of course. And then I want to go over the tamers a little bit here, just because there's a lot you can do with them, and I'm showcasing a couple different ones. Of course, you have 4 GP, that's very standard. And then I'm splitting 2 Mimi and 2 Ken. Both cards are very, very good tamers for this deck. They both come up in different scenarios very well. I'm choosing to split them 2-2 just because I can't really decide which one I want to index into more. They're both so good in so many different situations that I almost feel like I have to run them in this way because I want to see them both every game. So 2-2 Mimi Ken is very good. Ken in general is a tamer in green that has been slept on for quite some time, but it's definitely coming back. It's making his resurgence, and he is a very good tamer to consider, considering the playstyle of this deck. Then for your tech tamers, there's usually like 1 or 2 open slots for other green tamers you could be playing. I'm choosing to showcase the Izzy and Mimi dual tamer and the Izzy from the starter deck. So the difference between these 2 cards is that Izzy and Mimi actually does something on its own when it's hit out of security, because the effect to gain 2 memory at the start of your turn is triggered by your opponent having a suspended Digimon. So if your opponent attacks into Izzy and Mimi, that suspended Digimon is still going to be on their board, thereby triggering the 2 memory gain for Izzy and Mimi. So in that scenario, this card actually does something when it comes out of security, whereas the starter deck Izzy requires you to have a combo piece in hand in order to get off the memory gain. So the starter deck Izzy is when you suspend an opponent's Digimon on your turn, you can suspend the tamer to gain 1 memory. It's a little more conditional. The boon is that it's only 2 play costs, so if it's in your hand, it is definitely feels better than playing the Izzy and Mimi from your hand, which costs 4. So there's a lot of 4 cost tamers in this deck if you do choose to play the Izzy and Mimi. And one more thing I will say about the Izzy and Mimi is that it can stifle some aggression from your opponent, because they have to suspend to attack, and if they don't die in security, let's say they hit one of your tamers, they hit Atomic Inferno, they hit Thunder Laser, they hit Evolution Ancient, they hit like a weak level 3, their Digimon is not going to die, and they're going to pass you over 2 memories. So sometimes it makes them double think themselves, like double guess themselves about whether or not it's worth it to attack, and potentially pass you over that extra memory, which will help you extend your plays. You don't really use the secondary effect of Izzy Mimi to when you attack with a level 5, check top 3 and Digivolve for free. Yes, it can come up if you attack with Rhino, Kabu, Terriermon. You might as well tap the Izzy, maybe use the effect, and potentially get a free Digivolve off. But that's not really the main reason why we're playing the card. It's mostly just for that 2 memory gain effect. So you can run either 2 of these or 2 of these, or you can split them some way. The only other tamer that's really viable is the Izzy Izumi from BT7, which is if you have a level 5 or higher green Digimon, you can tap it to check the top card of your deck, and if it's a Digimon, you can add it to your hand. Drawing cards is nice, but it doesn't have an immediate effect on the game state, and it doesn't really feel as good to check out of security. So for that reason, I feel like the Izzy and maybe Dual Tamer or Starter Deck Izzy are better choices overall. Finally, for our options, of course, for Atomic Inferno, this is like the main reason to even be running the red base package outside of the consistency that those rookies offer. So you really do want to be running the 4 Atomic Inferno. It combos so strongly with Rhino Kabu and Ancient Beetlemon. It's almost a no-brainer to be including this card in the deck. Really improves your yellow matchup as well, so if there's a lot of yellow players at your locals, this is the version of the deck you want to be playing, in my opinion. And finally, Thunder Laser is still a really good card that you do want to be playing, just for the ability to clear larger threats on your opponent's side of the board and getting rid of them and being able to get off your piercing and trashing effects. Alright, so that's pretty much the overview, my version of the build for the Atomic Green Hybrid deck. Just going to zoom out a bit for you guys so you guys can see it all at once. And then for the standard full green list, it is very similar ratios, but there are, of course, several different key distinctions to make. First distinction I want to make is the inclusion of 4 Terriermon over the 3 Gaussmon. Terriermon is going to improve matchups in versus decks that like to gain a lot of memory, like let's say purple or blue. Terriermon is going to be very effective against those decks, and having 4 of them really stifles the combos that they try to go for. And then our other level 4 option is 4 Palmons, which give you plus 2000 DP if you attack over an opponent's Digimon. This combos very well with the suspend, attacking, and piercing strategy of the green deck, and is really the only other viable level 3 green, unfortunately. So we max out on these 2 rookies, and then everything else is kind of substandard or not really necessary. I did skip over the eggs. We do run Minomon just because it gives you another plus 1000, again for that extra DP, and Pinomon, which allows you to draw 1 if you attack over an opponent's Digimon. It's nice, but we value the DP gain more, honestly. Everything else is pretty much the same, except I do want to highlight here the extra Petal-Dramon. This is the other level 4 hybrid that is available to green. It is a little clunky because it's a 3 to Digivolve instead of a 2 to Digivolve. However, you can, again, reduce the cost with JP or even Bokomon to let it come out for cheaper. And this is the best level 4 hybrid to drop off of your Ancient Beetle or Ancient Troymon's Destruction effect, since it has a large 7000 DP and has Piercing inherent to its effect. So it's something to consider. I do feel like the 3 cost of Digivolve is just a little too clunky for me personally, but I do know a lot of people who really value this card, especially for being able to play it off of the Ancient's on deletion effect. Alright, and that's pretty much it. Everything else is the same as the red based list, except for, of course, we're not running Atomic Inferno, which lets us have more room for 4 Thunder Lasers, which again synergizes super well with what we're trying to do with this deck. Alright, so there you guys have it. That's my 2 different green lists for you. Going over some quick tech choices that I did not mention. First of all, I did include in this deck as well, I almost forgot, is the Argomon level 5. Because we are running green rookies in this deck, we're actually going to be able to make use of the inheritable effect. So there are situations that could come up where, let's say you Digivolve into Beetlemon for 1 over JP, then you Digizorb by suspending one of your other Digimon, let's say, I don't know, a Bokomon, go into Argomon for free, Digivolve into Ancient Beetlemon, and then maybe you're at 5 memory, and you can attack, and then you can use the effect to drop another Terriermon. It's just something that could come up. It's something that I want to just bring up as an option. Blossomon is, of course, also an option. But because we are running the rookies in this deck that can be played from Argomon, I think it is worth mentioning. Other tech choice that I didn't really mention is Nidhoggmon. Nidhoggmon, I still feel like has a lot of value. I know I've been playing against like Eismon decks, and every time I'm like, man, I wish I had Nidhogg still, so I can bot deck these freaking Eismons. Unfortunately, in the red base version of the deck, Nidhogg is basically an impossibility. The only way to get him out is to go JP into Beetlemon, into Metal Kabuterimon, into Rhino Kabuterimon, and then finally into Nidhogg, because that gives you your 4 sources to Digiburst. It's a lot easier to pull off in a deck that can pull out from raising, obviously. So in this case, since you are able to digivolve over your eggs, you'll be able to have those 2 extra sources to more easily fuel your Nidhogg. So that is maybe something to consider. Like you could maybe cut 1 Ancient Troymon, fit in a Tech Nidhogg, or if you are planning on playing in Digifest, or your locals is running some practice sideboard mulligan, I know some locals are trying to do that, then you can consider copies of Nidhogg in your sideboard and bring those in when you're against those decks that have a lot of 5,000 DP or less guys that you want to suspend and send to the bottom of their deck. Or even you can combo with Thunder Laser, suspend something big, and then Nidhogg them. Similar to the old Needle Spray Nidhogg plays of old. And yeah, that's pretty much it. That's a green hybrid for BT7. I really hope you guys learned something. This is a very fun deck, very cheap deck. The most expensive card in the deck is Guilmon, surprisingly. Everything else is common or rare for whatever reason. So if you're just coming into the game, you don't know what to play, I think Green Hybrid is going to be a very cheap entry point for you guys to be able to start winning games with. If you've been playing the game for a long time and you're looking for a new color deck, Green is finally back and has a very fun playstyle in this format. I highly recommend it. So please guys, check out the deck. I hope you guys enjoy my builds. Hope you guys go to locals and start winning some games. All right, so GG's, and I'll see you in the next video.